100 Words or Less, the podcast, is part of the Punk News Podcast Network. You can visit punknews.org for all of the latest news in punk, hardcore, metal, whatever you'd like to call it. Go there, check it out. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 100 Words or Less, the podcast. I am your host, Ray Harkins, and we are on episode number 11 right now. And my guest this week is Matt Fox, the guitarist from the band Shai Hulud. Known the dude forever, and it was awesome to sit down and hang out with him outside the context of a show and, kind of get to know him and know his, he probably would like this reference, his origin story, because he's a big comic book dude. In any event, subscribe to the show, whether you listen to it via iTunes or a podcast catcher on your phone. Like I use one called Instacast, which I'm able to just download the shows directly to my phone. And that way I don't even have to plug them into a computer, which is awesome. So subscribe. That way you'll get all the new shows as they get published every Tuesday. And I promise to continue to keep uploading them every week. So there you go. And also follow us on Twitter at 100 Words Podcast. Usually I'll just talk about the upcoming guests that we have, and that way you'll kind of know what's coming up ahead of the curve before everybody else knows. And then we also have Facebook, so you could follow us or like us or whatever people do on there. I just don't use Facebook that much. And then also you can email us 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. A few people have been reaching out, and I've really liked the feedback that people have given me. It's very insightful, and you can tell that they actually, listen to the shows and comment on, what they would like to see, hear, future guests, all that type of stuff. So I really like it, and it's nice to be able to interact with people over that medium that, I just have never met personally, and we are able to develop a relationship from there. So anyways, people have also asked about the music that's played at the beginning and the very end of the show. It's from a band called Balance and Composure. They're on No Sleep Records, and it was one of my favorite records of 2011, and it just provides a very suitable atmosphere leading into the show and leaving the show. So thank you to Chris Hansen for letting me play that music, and if you like it, you can find their stuff anywhere and everywhere and see them on tour and all that other good stuff. I had the experience, I know I mentioned it in a previous show, where I was going to some of the Revelation Records Rev 25 shows where they're celebrating their 25th anniversary. And the band Quicksand reunited and performed 5 songs, and which was fucking unbelievable. It was honestly one of the best things that I've seen in recent memory, where the band sounded incredible. They played great songs. And they just looked like they were having fun up there, which was cool because I had seen them a few times before, and they looked like they were having fun back then, but this was just kind of a renewed vigor in a way. So word on the street is that they may do stuff in 2013, but whatever. It'll be one of those things where rumors fly until they actually do happen. So, but that's not what I wanted to talk about right now. I had 2 separate but equally interesting conversations with people that were at that show, outside of the show. One person who I work with, and he was at the Sunday night show in which Quicksand played. He personally was never a fan of Quicksand, but we had an interesting conversation about, kind of the idea of nostalgia and people, hanging on, where it's like you have, because these shows were bringing people out to the show that, might not have gone to a show within the past year or 2 years. But because a lot of bands were reuniting and all kind of under one roof, there was going to be people that hadn't been as active in the scene, so to speak. And so it's interesting because there are people that have been involved for a long time that, for whatever reasons aren't able to, go to as many shows as they'd like because, they've got kids or, their job is killing them or whatever the case may be. Time is not on their side from that perspective. And so, it's interesting because on one hand, I obviously completely empathize and understand where people like that come from, because, I myself, like, my time is dwindling because or my time is more valuable because, I have a kid. So it's like I want to spend a ton of time with him for obvious reasons. Married, got a lot of other things going on. So like when I do go to a show, I feel like it's more of an event as opposed to something, when I was 17, 18 years old, where it's like, that's just kind of what I did, 4 nights a week. So I definitely am more selective about what I spend my time with. But I feel like because of that, or not just because of that, but because I've been trying to stay active in other ways, such as doing this podcast or, doing that Sound and Fury festival with my good friend Joey. These are ways that I feel still connected to independent music, and obviously gives me the ability to, continue to care about it, and still discover new music and, be excited about it, as opposed to, people that become farther removed from independent music, either by choice or just by life getting in the way. And then obviously they become, jaded. They don't care about stuff anymore. All of the older bands are great. The newer bands suck. And so you see a lot of that, obviously, in that movie, American Hardcore. But anyways, and then on the flip side, like kind of the polar opposite of the conversation I had with my friend at work, is another longtime friend, and he's actually my tattoo artist, where we just talked about how amazing it is that we've been let in on this as far as independent music is concerned, because, we were running into people, both him and myself, at those shows where it's like, we hadn't either seen in years, or, it's just kind of a bunch of good people under one roof. And we've been incredibly fortunate, both him and myself, where we've kind of been able to make livings off of our passion, which that always isn't the case for a lot of people. They have to make compromises for whatever reasons to, either do a job they don't want to, or, not be able to pursue a band, or whatever it is that kind of gets in the way. And it's totally understandable, because these things, like I said before, they totally happen. Life gets in the way. But yeah, him and I were just having a very reflective conversation on how amazing it's been that we've been able to kind of navigate these waters and still kind of do the same stuff that we've been doing ever since we were 15 years old, but somehow make a living off of it now. In any event, so yeah, both of these conversations I had just really kind of rattled around in my head, and it was just really interesting to kind of all temper that against a show and kind of have so many different emotions going into an evening like that. But it's just cool, because I think regardless of what side you end up on, whether you do go to one show a year and you hate all the new bands, or whether you are still incredibly involved as you get older, it doesn't really matter. The fact that you do have that experience, people that go to a movie on a Saturday night, you do have an experience, and it can be intense, it can be emotional, but in the way that it resonates with you for the rest of your life, as far as this independent culture is concerned. I guess you can make the argument where obviously art in general can impact you in so many ways, and obviously give you so many things that you never thought you would ever be able to have from, just a living perspective. But yeah, I do feel like, even though the mainstream music scene has obviously peaked its head in, and independent music is as big as it ever has been, with things like the Warped Tour and everything else, and Hot Topic, it still is a very special thing. And I was just really, glad to obviously be a part of those shows and see some great bands play. And then, yeah, above all, just have friends that are really talented around you, and being able to pursue their passions. Because yeah, like it's a difficult thing to do. So yeah, it was just it was fun, and I enjoyed that experience, and I enjoyed both those conversations equally. So yeah, you think about it, see how you feel about nostalgia, and whether or not, as you grow older with independent music, like where it sits in your life, because ultimately you should just get enjoyment out of whatever music it is that you're listening to, independent or not. So anyways, so I'm sitting down with Matt Fox from Shai Hulud. I've known him for years. Shai Hulud is one of those bands where they've been so obviously persistent throughout all of the changes that they've gone through, member-wise, and different vocalists. And, this band should have given up a long time ago from the hardship perspective. but Matt Fox just continually, puts his head down and moves forward, and obviously still shares his artistic vision with the rest of the world. And, I think we're all lucky for that because, it definitely takes a certain type of person to continue to do that. And so because of all that, obviously I felt like it would be very enlightening to have a conversation with him about, why he still does this and, what is there to be excited about moving on or, moving forward. You'll join us in a conversation where I'm just kind of talking about how I'm going to do this intro for him and, thanking him for sitting down with us in general. So here you go. I'll do my own intro for you and stuff like that. So we'll...
I'm here with this idiot.
Yeah, exactly. I'm here with this guy. Some of you may know from some terrible band.
A lot of people would agree.
That's your own... Oh, wow. Is that a text message sound?
Yeah, Star Trek.
Oh, nice. I like that. I like that. Yeah. I was like, that is a familiar noise. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for wanting to obviously do this and hang out.
Pleasure, of course.
I appreciate it. Usually I like to start things off where, well, first of all, it's really fun for me to do these shows just because, like, there are very rare occasions where you can sit down with a person for like an hour, 45 minutes or whatever, and just like talk.
Sure.
And even though we've known each other for years and we've existed in the same world, we just, there's very rare times, unless you're like deliberately being like, all right, we're going to have coffee for this time. But obviously, since you live on the opposite coast as me, that doesn't happen unless we run into each other's show or whatever.
Exactly.
And so because of that, like, you know a lot about people, but then you know nothing about them at the same time. So where were you, like, did you always live in like upstate New York, and like were you born and raised there, or like what's the background of you in regards to that?
The background of me, I was born in Long Island. I believe
you were told.
I was told. I have no evidence of this. No,
sure.
No, I was born in Smithtown, and I lived in Little Neck, which is, I guess, at the edge of Long Island.
Okay.
And then my mom moved to... She was divorced, and her parents got sick, and it was just her and I. So her parents moved to Florida, and I went, obviously, with them at 5 years old. So I grew up in South Florida.
Okay.
But in 2000, I went back to New York. But not Long Island, Poughkeepsie, which is
sure
so much different than
It's a whole different beast from Long Island.
It's so far from what I think most people consider to be New York.
Yeah,
but I grew up in South Florida.
Yeah, your formative years were the South Florida.
The reason it's funny because New York has such a stronghold, always has on hardcore.
Yep.
But I credit everything that I'm into, whether it was from Florida or from Europe or from New York, from living in South Florida, my friends, the music that was around me, the record stores. I'm pretty certain that everything that I got into is because of who I was with, where I was, and what was around me at the time in South Florida, which is why South Florida means so much to me.
Right. And what city in particular were you in South Florida?
Pompano Beach, unincorporated Pompano Beach, Florida.
What does that mean, unincorporated?
I don't know. I have no idea.
You're like, but I know it's unincorporated.
But I know it's unincorporated. It was on all our mail. Pompano Beach, in parentheses, unincorporated.
That's weird.
Pompano Beach, I guess, has one claim to fame, which was... I think in that movie, I think it's called Something About Mary.
Okay.
I never even saw it, but Chris Elliott apparently throughout the whole movie is lying, telling everybody that he's a rich, important guy from Miami. And when he finally tells the truth, he breaks down, I'm not rich and I'm from Pompano. And that's like our claim. All my friends in Pompano are like, yeah, that's right.
That's amazing. That's like, yeah, because I mean, I've heard of the city, but I couldn't tell you one cultural thing that happened around it.
Yeah. Well,
you mentioning that was like, oh yeah, I remember that line.
That might be the biggest
the
biggest impact that Pompano Beach has ever had. But I love it. I'm proud of Pompano. I love the area. It's still my favorite place in the world.
Yeah. You like to go down there like on vacations or anything like that and just
I don't get a chance to do that too much.
Sure.
But, I love being there. Right. I get excited just to see roads.
Right.
Sample Road is the road I grew up on. And when I see Sample Road,
sure,
my skin moves. There are things that churn inside me when I see Sample Road.
That's very cool that you have such an attachment to that, because a lot of people, especially I find in like the punk and hardcore scene, it's like wherever, especially if they're in a remote area, or I mean, Palmetto is not like remote, but it could be considered rural by some stretch of the imagination. Sure. And anybody that's brought up in those scenarios, they're like, I can't wait to get out. I can't wait to get out because, whatever, there's no one understands me here or whatever. But it's like, you have such an emotional attachment. It's just nice to see that people are
cool.
Prideful about, hey, I had a really good time here.
I love, it's funny you mentioned that. Because even at 5 years old, I come from a long line of New Yorkers. Uh-huh. And, New York snobbery is kind of imprinted in my DNA. So I remember at 5 years old, literally, I remember this, being in Florida saying, I hate these assholes. Seeing, just kids and people, and like, I hate all this. Just the way like Woody Allen feels about New York or anywhere else in the world. Like, New York is it. Right. So I had that in me, but I guess the sun baked it out, because now I would, as much as I love New York City, I there's no way I could live there. Right. I am Pompano through and through. Yeah. I don't understand street parking. I like parking lot. You know what I mean? Sure. Like everything about Pompano, the way it's gridded geographically, I have a terrible sense of direction. I could find my way around in South Florida. So, yeah, I don't mean to make this a South Florida
No, dude, it's fine.
But I love the place, and it's always, I know I'm going to end up there, aside from the fact that I'm from New York and Jewish. So that also in my DNA means that I have to end up in Florida.
You have to be a snowbird at some point.
I will, even again, if it was against my will, I will end up in South Florida.
That's amazing. So as you like you said, you went down there because your grandparents were sick? My
grandfather got sick, and my mother was, I believe, recently divorced. Sure. So they were leaving her, and she said, what do I have here? Sure. So that she moved down with them.
With the, because my parents, my parents were divorced around like 4 or 5 as well. Like, how did that affect you? Like, do you still have touch with your father? Like, was he?
Not too much. Yeah. I mean, we talk here and there. I met my dad really for the first time when I was 18. Okay. I spent a week with him, and then didn't hear from him at 23. He contacted me, and we kind of became in each other's lives for about maybe 2-3 years. And then it's been sporadic.
Just kind of popped in and out.
Sporadic phone calls. Yeah. Ever since. But I don't know, how did it affect me? It's interesting because, sorry, I'm trying to think as I speak.
You got to process that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because growing up, it never bothered me at all. Right. And I am, admittedly, and anyone who knows me, I think will agree, I'm much more feminine in nature than I am masculine. Sure. Everything about me, when I get into an argument with a friend, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, you really handle this like a woman. Yeah. Which to me is a huge compliment. Sure. Not that I have no respect for men. Right. But, my gender of choice, and that has nothing outside of all sexual preference. Of course. My gender of choice as far as friendships and what I believe to be common sense and rationality is stronger in women. That's amazing. I have the same. I'm an only child, and I was raised by my mother mostly, even though my stepfather was an important part of my life. But I have the same way. All of my closer friends have been females, and I have such a more, I guess a deeper connection. I totally agree with you on that. That's how I've always been. So growing up, or when I got old enough to kind of understand any of that, I said, growing up without, people talk about growing up without a dad all the time, and they're all upset about it. I'm fine. Right. But within the past couple years, I think I've realized, and I'm certainly not a, what do they say, the family values type of guy. Sure. I have. Yeah. I don't believe that there's any proper structure for anybody. Right. It's different for everybody. Right. But I will say that I am so feminine in so many ways that having grown up with a father may have done some good. Sure. In regards to, and this is again not to say that I was going to use the example of discipline.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that discipline is exclusively a male
Of
trait.
course. No, for sure.
But, you know.
But you're just, I mean, you're setting this up in archetypes. Like, this,
sure.
Typically speaking, the father is more of the, hard-ass disciplinarian, whatever. I get what you're saying.
Sure. So I'm just thinking, in regards to my personality and how all over the place, I have no structure.
Right.
In fact, my life, I think, if it suffers from anything, the fact that I have no money, the fact that all the things that are kind of always on shaky ground for me comes from the fact that I have no structure.
Sure.
That's me.
And it's
in a nutshell.
And it's so funny that you say that, because it's like so many people, like, you look at the music that you create, especially in particular with Shai Hulud, and it's like that could be a review of your records. I mean, just like musically, because it's like a lot of people say that, it's like it's very scattered in the sense of, like, you do create song structure, but it's just like you are moving at a very rapid pace through that. It's just funny, the parallels.
See, there it is.
That is.
Who needs therapy? We just figured it all out.
That's perfect.
But it's true. So the lack of a male influence in growing up, does it bother me? No, I'm totally fine with it. But in retrospect, now as an adult, I see that if I did grow up with a father figure, where certain things may have been different and I could have benefited from that.
Sure.
Once again, as I always repeat myself, that said, I certainly have no qualms with.
Right. You're like, I don't want to redo this for this, but you're like, I could have seen.
But I do see the importance of it.
Of course, right.
And again, not for everybody. And I'm not on drugs. I'm stable.
Yeah.
I like to think that I can think and live normally.
Right.
So my upbringing didn't affect me terribly negatively. It's funny, though, just a side note that really has nothing to do with anything. I was with my girlfriend a few years ago. And, she would always say to me, with everything, I don't even know if I should admit this, but one of the first times that we were laying down, I curled right up next to her. She says, "Oh, my God, you're like a little girl."
Right.
And I said, "What do you mean?" Because it didn't even dawn on me.
Well, yeah.
And she says, "No, you're the man. You're supposed to look like this. I'm supposed to come to you."
Right. I'm the little spoon, you're the big spoon.
Yeah, right. Enough. So, and she did that. And I said, "Yeah, this is nice, but sometimes I like this too."
Yeah.
And it didn't dawn on me. So it's funny, we dated for a few years, and she lived in Europe, so she came to visit me, and I lived in New York at the time, but we said, let's get away from everything and go to Florida and just do fun stuff.
Sure.
So we went to Florida. We went to go see my grandma. So my grandmother, before she died, it was my grandmother, my mother, my Aunt Shirley, I believe my Aunt Florence, my Aunt Iva.
Holy moly.
So they're all there.
Yeah.
And, she got to witness, because, she would always say, you're so feminine. And she used to call me her little poof, which was fine.
You're like, I'm fine with that.
That's great. But, these 5 women are all in the room. "Matt, did you want something to eat? He's not hungry. He just ate. Let him eat if he wants to eat." So this, and I'm sitting in the midst of this with my girlfriend, who's always commenting on how I am. And I look at her and say, "Now you understand."
Right. I am the product of my environment.
This is how I grew up. This is what I am.
Yeah.
If you
Totally. Well,
so
that's amazing. That's. I mean, yeah, and I think that environment also, like you said, it really hammers the point home of you having, respect for females, and kind of you're maybe more empathetic to the quote unquote plight in a way.
Yeah, I've always the bet, and that's not. I'm having a great conversation with you, and that's not to say that I haven't had great conversations or great friendships with men.
Right.
Probably the deepest and the deepest understanding and the deepest communication I've ever had with a human being is probably with females.
Right.
And that's
so yeah, you're a product of your environment. Like you have that many aunts down there, and it's like you're constantly surrounded by that, and it's like that's normal, and I think that's what happens. That
was and is me, for better or for worse.
Right. So as you journeyed through the southern Florida, there were swamps down there, right? Not in Pompano?
Not in Pompano.
Okay.
Yeah, they're definitely, I think, north of us.
Right, okay. So when did you first get introduced to music? Like, when did that become a part of your life? And then kind of when did the transition into, like, I guess more independent music and sort of the hardcore punk world come to your purview?
Sure. Let's see. How did it happen? I think, who knows for sure.
Right.
But I think I've always been inclined towards heavier, angrier music.
Okay.
And this is a story that I've told a couple times, and I really do love telling it.
Yeah.
So, the first memory I have of any type of music was before I even heard music. It was just seeing images of Kiss. Wow, those guys look cool.
Was that like on television, or was your mother into it?
Yeah, probably television. Yeah. I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
No, my mother was not in. She listened to ABBA, Paul Simon, and Billy Joel, and
which are good, right.
Now I love ABBA. I'm still not too familiar with, though. I did write Dancing Queen, not knowing that they wrote it first. We'll get into that later. If you, I'm not lying.
Sounds incredible.
But anyway. Yeah, I do love Paul Simon and Billy Joel, and actually stole quite a few of their lyrics for Shai Hulud songs.
Okay.
Which
artistic credit where artistic credit is due.
Yeah, definitely stole from those guys. But how I knew about Kiss, I don't know. But spitting blood, fire, makeup. This guy's from outer space, cool.
Right.
I'm 5 years old or what have you, and I loved it. But I didn't know anything about the music other than the fact that they played it.
Just the imagery of it was so strong, right?
So I remember being in kindergarten. And there were bricks or blocks that we were playing with. And I remember picking up a long one and giving one of the long ones to my friend and taking another one. I said, okay, you be Paul Stanley, I'll be Gene Simmons. And that was that was me playing make-believe. And one of the first memories I have of doing that was acting out as Kiss.
Sure.
So, and that's before I knew the music. But that just, at least in my mind, shows I've always was interested in rock and roll.
Right.
And also... things that were a little more theatrical.
Sure.
Which also makes sense because I was, when I was in college for a brief time, theater was my
what
major.
You were pursuing. Sure.
So, but yeah, hearing about Kiss was my first thing, and then I think I always liked music, whatever would be on the radio. At 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And I got into Men at Work. It was probably my first favorite band.
Okay.
From Australia.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because when I go to Australia now, I think people, when they go there, they always make jokes about some of the Australian things that they like. But no joke, for real,
right.
Men at Work still to this day are one of my all-time
You're
favorite
like,
bands.
This is not ironic. I like Men at Work.
Exactly.
Yep.
Anytime I go there, that using the word ironic is exactly what I was trying to get across.
Sure.
Going there, I always tell people, I mean,
right.
If there's a place I can get Men at Work stuff, I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to be funny.
Right.
I love Men at Work.
Yeah.
So that was probably the first band, not very heavy at all.
Sure.
That was probably the first band that I was really passionate about. The first cassette I bought, which started where it started getting heavier, was either Frontiers or Escape by Journey.
Okay.
So now we've got like a heavy guitar sound. Ooh, I like this.
Sure.
And then from there it was...
And you were always interested, like the guitar work was what kind of really that was the most upfront to you with all the recordings?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was the guitar work necessarily. I don't think at that age that I was old enough to understand
process
that.
It, sure.
Yeah. I think the first time I ever recognized that there were layers in music, and I haven't thought about this in years.
Yeah.
You know the Big Brother Foundation? You know what that is?
No.
Like kids without...
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
I had a big brother at one point.
Oh, okay.
And we were listening to music. He liked music a lot. He turned out to be a real weirdo.
Right.
That's not even worth getting into.
Sure.
But we were both listening to that song. I don't even know if you know it. I think it's called You Dropped a Bomb on Me.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think the first time I ever realized that there were layers in music was that song. Long before I heard Queen or anything, that's truly layered.
Right.
But I remember hearing, and I was saying to this guy, I like how this is happening here, and then I hear this in the background. And so maybe that made some sort of impression, but that was the first time I understood anything about any type of layering in music.
How a record can potentially be created.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Or that there was a creation process to it.
Right.
To get to the end result.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So, but, I don't even know who wrote that song, and that song is certainly not important in my life.
Yeah.
Regarding...
That was the experience without the layers, yeah.
So, without talking too much, then it was mainstream rock that I heard, and at that point, mainstream heavy rock.
Sure.
So from Journey to Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister, And then I knew, okay, so this is heavy metal.
Right.
And then from there, it went into, like I was telling you earlier, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin.
Right.
Later Black Sabbath. Honestly, the Black Sabbath, my favorite Black Sabbath album was the first one I heard, which was with Dio, Heaven and Hell.
Okay, yeah.
So, and it progressively got heavier from there. But I think the first two bands that I really, outside of Men at Work, that I was really passionate about, that were in any type of counterculture, would be Twisted Sister and Quiet Riot. Yeah. Those were the two big ones. And then there were ancillary bands.
Of course.
You know, you had your Rats and your Wasp, Wasp I love, still to this day, Rat not so much.
Right.
So yeah, and that was all before I was in second grade. And another
that is so accelerated.
Yeah, and really interesting. Men at Work happened in second grade. I shouldn't say before. Men at Work happened when I was in second grade. That I remember for a fact. And then shortly after that, or around that time, is when all of these other bands
that's just crazy.
Started.
I mean, it's just funny because it's like you said. I mean, even though music was an important part of your life, because like I reference myself, and like I look at when I started to care about music on a deeper level, and that wasn't until like 6th, 7th grade. It's like I liked music, but it was like, you know, Paula Abdul and stuff that's like, I mean, which was like, I still reference that as important as far as my lineage of getting into music, but
sure.
It's just like in second grade, like, that's just, you were very advanced, Matt.
I don't know how advanced I am or was, but it's interesting regarding pop music. I don't know what year it was, and I can't remember what album it was. It may have been Off the Wall, Michael Jackson, Off the Wall, or it could have been Thriller. But around that time, I was visiting my friend in New York. I was, at that point, living in Florida. So his mother took us to a record store, and she said, okay, we both love music. You could both go buy one album each.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, great.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the same records, and then I don't know how it ended up happening, but we drifted away because what he was looking at and what I was looking at, we just went our own separate ways.
Right.
And then we finally met up because we made our choices. And I remember standing, I wish that I could have showed this to anyone that might be listening.
Sure.
But I just remember us standing together and both of us feeling perplexity,
right?
Because we couldn't understand why
each other chose. Sure.
So we're standing next to each other, and he's holding, like I said, I'm not sure which it was. Let's just say Thriller. He's holding Michael Jackson Thriller, a cassette in his hand, and right next to it, I'm showing him, and side by side, and I've got Wasp's The Last Command.
Which, they could not be from two polar opposite worlds.
You know what I mean? And it's just so interesting because that was always my natural direction. As soon as I knew that there was something slightly heavier, slightly angrier, without even knowing what heavy or angry was.
Right.
It's not like I was 11 years old and saying, I want something heavy or angry.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Right.
I just knew, no disrespect to Michael Jackson, important, very talented guy.
Of course.
But I did know at an early age that Thriller, Beat It, Billie Jean, great songs, great pop songs. I knew that they meant nothing to me. They meant nothing to me then. They still mean nothing to me now. Michael Jackson as an artist and
of course
performer is, second to none. And I do love Jackson 5, but pop music in general has never, ever appealed to me. And as soon as I knew that there was an alternative, Wasp, fuck yeah.
You're like,
sign me up.
Yeah, I will go down this route. You can have your mainstream, and like obviously, like you said, you weren't coming from a standpoint where you understood where it came from.
And that's what's so interesting, that it was a totally natural thing, because you hear it all the time.
Yeah.
How did you ever hear about youth of today? Oh, my older sister.
Yeah.
Her. She listened to Minor Threat, and her boyfriend came over and gave me this.
Yeah.
For me, it was just, here's what's on the radio. Oh, what's that guy's spitting blood? Let me check that out.
Right.
And so that was the path that got me into metal and hardcore. I don't know if you want me to specifically list.
Yeah, where did you splinter off? Like your love for for lack of a better term, like the 80s glam metal, power metal. That
no glam.
No glam. Sorry, there's a very distinct distinction between the two.
Yeah, I really never got into glam. I got into some glammier things before let's just get to it. Metallica changed my life.
Okay.
Before Metallica, it was Twisted Sister, which is obviously has a foot in the glam world.
Right.
Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, and Wasp, favorite bands. And then after that was Motley Crue, who became my all-time favorite band. I love this, and that also has a foot in the glam world. And the Motley Crue albums that I love are just the first two. I love Too Fast for Love, and I love Shout at the Devil, which I think is their best moment.
Sure.
For a metalhead.
Yep.
If you liked 80s glammier stuff, then they have tons of.
They've got tons more records after that.
But for me, it was Too Fast for Love and Shout at the Devil. But when I heard Master of Puppets in 1986, I simply did not know music could sound like that. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to hear. Everything about it, from the guitar riffs to the melodies, to the aggressive vocals. This is what are they called, and where can I find more of it?
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. So 86 was the turning point for me, where okay, this is called thrash metal.
Yeah,
I'm fucking in.
Right.
And that's the crux of my musical love. And I don't know if it's because I've been around so long, but a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, Fox knows a lot about music." I don't know a lot about music. Yeah. I know about 80s thrash.
Right.
That's all I know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like a lot of different stuff, but my knowledge, my true roots in any type of underground music come from that.
Sure.
So Metallica is the band that changed my life.
Right.
And then really easily, without, again, talking too much, what T-shirts did they wear? They wore Misfits
shirts, right.
So I checked out Misfits. One of my all-time favorites. Earth AD, still in my top 5, if not my 3rd favorite hardcore punk album of all time.
Right.
And then from there, I get into Slayer, and the guy's got a Dead Kennedy sticker.
Right.
Who's that? And that
the layers just peeled away from there.
And they all talked about Exploited and Discharge. So, and then
logically, why would you not check that out?
Yeah, so I got into all that stuff, and to this day, when somebody, I like softer stuff. Like I said, I like Paul Simon, I like a bunch of stuff. But when somebody tries to play me like maybe singer-songwriter stuff, not that I think it's bad, but I'm not interested. And they say, "How do you like good music? How are you not into this?" And my response is, I like punk rock, heavy metal, and hardcore.
Right.
That's what I listen to.
That is what I identify with. Sure.
And that I love what little I know of jazz. I love the jazz that appeals to me. I love most classical music. I couldn't tell you the difference between Mozart, Beethoven, Bach. Those guys, those 3 names may very well be the same person for all I know.
Right.
I don't know.
Sure.
But I know that I love classical music when I hear it.
Right.
But when I go to put on music, it's punk rock, heavy metal, or hardcore.
Right.
As soon as I realize it, from then until my death, I'm not going to be 60 years old. Oh, I used to be really into hardcore.
Right. That's just in my bloodstream.
It's like I was saying with Kiss and Wasp, that's been my general direction.
Right.
If I'd never heard Metallica, maybe we'd be talking about Britney Fox and Rat.
Right.
How important, you know what I mean? But I heard Metallica, that put me on the path.
That switch flipped, right.
And
so when did you become inclined to obviously like pick up guitar and be like, this is what I would like to create, this style of music? And on top of that, what was your first band that you were able to put together?
Let's see here. I started out playing drums, which is cool. It used to be a pretty I want to say good, pretty competent,
proficient,
drummer.
Right?
Yeah, I was competent.
Right.
We'll go that far.
Okay. Okay.
Almost competent.
Sure.
But, so I would play drums in local hardcore bands. But before I started playing drums, I just always thought that I had the knack for it.
Okay.
Not that I should rephrase that. Not that I thought I had the knack, but I had an understanding of it. And I remember thinking, I'm pretty sure I can do that.
Keep time. Yeah.
You know what I mean? The same way that somebody sees a half pipe for the first time and says, I understand how to do that and not hurt myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the first time I was ever around a drum set was in, I think, 7th grade. And, I was looking at it, and the instructor said, "Oh, did you want to play? Or do you play?" And I just went, "Uh-huh." And I'd never even sat behind a drum set before.
Right.
And what I'm about to tell may not be as accurate as I'd like to think it is.
Sure.
But this is how I recall it.
Okay.
Or how my brain is twisted it.
The legend.
Yeah. But I remember saying, he gave me permission to go behind it, and I remember getting behind there and playing, like I said, as I recall it, fairly well a beat from Motley Crue's Theater of Pain.
Okay.
Which is the album that got me out of Motley Crue. I was never really into it.
Sure.
But I remember getting back there and playing a beat fairly solidly, and the instructor even saying, "Oh, yeah, you're pretty
good job." Right.
And like I said, I looked at the drum set and I just thought to myself, I understand that.
Right.
I know I can do that.
Sure.
So
how old were you when that happened? Was that
probably? It was 6th or 7th grade.
Okay, so yeah, whatever.
11, 12.
12, sure.
Something like that. I mean, there's that, I don't know if you ever saw on the internet, there's that little kid, Jonah, who was like 3 years old.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to say, like, look how cool I was. I played a Motley Crue beat at 11 years old. There's,
right.
There are 5-year-olds that are just fucking shredding.
Wailing. Sure.
You know what I mean? So, but the point is, I definitely had an understanding, and I knew
you could wrap your head around it.
Yeah. So, which was pretty cool. And,
right.
No Jonah, but it was really interesting that I thought, there it is, I'm in.
Sure.
And I played drums in a metal band. I guess the first band that I was in, we called ourselves Evil Alive.
Oh, now that's great.
This is what you're looking for, right?
Okay, yeah.
Not Evil Alive. One word, Evil Alive. And we know how we got that?
Please tell me.
Kiss Alive.
Of course.
We were in my guitar player and I were in my bedroom trying to think of names, and I remember coming up with or saying to him, "How about Fire Knife?" Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. That's a 13-year-old mind.
Of course.
There, Fire Knife.
Yeah.
He wasn't into it. I drew the logo and everything. And then we were we had Kiss Alive on vinyl right out, and it was up. I was looking at it upside down. Mm-hmm. So I said, "How about Evilla?" And he says, "I don't know." I said, "What about Evilla Live?" And we said,
the clouds parted.
Yeah, and we said, "Hell yeah, that's it." And we named our first band Evil Alive.
Nice.
Everyone said, "Evil Alive?" No. Evil Alive.
Like, let me correct you. Right.
So, and then it was funny, when Misfits came out with Live Evil, and then you see that all the time. But at the time, we thought we were brilliant.
Yeah, of course.
That band, we ended up changing our name to Unwillful Demise. We played a few shows. If we had any claim to fame, which we don't
sure.
at all, we played with a local South Florida band called Ambougalard, whose guitar player is now Twiggy Ramirez.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
there's that connection.
Yeah, there were all those guys, all those Manson guys were all in South Florida, Coral Springs, Pompano.
Sure.
So, we, all of us, anyone in the South Florida music scene has, plenty of stories and interactions with all those guys.
Yeah, because it's such a tight-knit scene, obviously.
Yeah. But that was like my main metal band, and then from there on, it was just local hardcore bands. I was in a band that actually opened for Unbroken, Farside, and Mean Season on their tour in like 90-something.
Sure.
We were called the Fabulous Murray Chestos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That almost sounds like a ska band, but obviously it wasn't.
No, it was a hardcore punk band.
Right.
And I have it on my computer in the other room if you want to hear it.
That's amazing.
It's good.
Yeah,
It's not, when I listen back to it,
sure.
It sounds youthy and it's not great.
Right.
But
you're like, hey, I'm fine with doing that at that age. Totally fine.
It's good. I'm proud of what we did. And then from there on, I was always playing guitar. Or, I'm sorry, drums in bands. I started out in Murray Chestos, and I think we had a few guitar players, and they weren't really writing such cool stuff.
Right. And
how I ended up picking up a guitar and started writing music, I don't know. Just, you play drums, you pick this up. So I started playing guitar, and I never knew that I had, I don't want to, I don't even like the way I started that. I should say, I didn't think that I would ever be a guy that would be writing music or writing anything cool, remotely cool.
Right.
In fact, I remember writing my first riff and my guitar playing, saying, we should probably change it. I don't know about that. We should try and change it this way. And my bass player saying, everything you write is always the same. It's got the same pattern. You start here, then you go low, then you go back there, and you go high.
Yeah.
So it's like I already had in my mind, okay, I suck. I can't play guitar. And I just kept doing it and writing stuff. And I switched from drums to guitar because I was doing most of the writing, for whether it was good or bad. But I didn't like anyone's stage presence. I said, we're in a hardcore band, guys.
Yeah.
And I knew, without really knowing anything about hardcore, because what did I know? I knew Minor Threat, and I couldn't go on YouTube and watch videos of Dead Kennedys.
Sure.
But what's really cool is that I think I had a natural understanding of the energy of hardcore punk. And at that point, I hadn't ever gone to a hardcore show. I'd only gone, to see Slayer and Testament and Metallica.
Sure.
So I wanted to take over on guitar because I knew what a hardcore guitar player should do. And I would always tell our singers, he would just kind of stand there. I said, no, man, like listen to Fear. And can you imagine the way he would, you know what I mean? I remember we were at practice and I grabbed the mic and started acting like a hardcore singer.
Right.
Now, again, this is what my memory tells me.
Sure.
How I really looked was probably completely ludicrous, but the idea was right.
Right.
Even at this point I was probably 17 or 18.
Sure.
But, I was trying to tell our singer for this hardcore band that we were trying to start was actually with a few of the members of Strong Arm. We were called Planet X. Straight edge band that did cover Fear's More Beer. True story.
I love these tidbits. The tidbits are incredible.
Fear is still one of my all-time favorites. But anyway, I think I had an understanding without really having any understanding of just the whole aura and energy of hardcore punk.
Sure. So you had the music lived through you, and it was like you weren't exposed to it, but it's like this has to be exerted physically.
I understand. Well put. I understand exactly how this is supposed to be delivered.
Right.
Before I knew who Youth of Today or Chain of Strength was, at that point, 18, 19 was maybe even 17, 18, around that era, late teens was Minor Threat, Circle Jerks. Wearing the T-shirt, big one for me. It was huge. In fact, everyone always talks about Black Flag. Black Flag's cool, but
but like Circle Jerks.
Circle Jerks is my.
Yeah, people need to have they don't need to have their allegiances, but people definitely have a preference, either one or over the other, just based on their exposure.
Yeah, and Circle Jerks for me, when I heard Black Flag, I heard slower, more ponderous, weird stuff. Sure. And then I heard Group Sex by Circle Jerks.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Right.
So Bad Brains, Circle Jerks, Minor Threat, 7 Seconds, MDC, Dead Kennedys. Those are the bands that I started getting into before I knew about Revelation Records hardcore, which was very active and very present at that time. Right. But I didn't even know about it yet.
Right. Because you hadn't been exposed to it.
Yeah,
sure.
Not yet.
And the so then because obviously during this time you were going to high school, and what was your experience as far as because you strike me. And no insult in any way, shape, or form, but
lay it on me.
Yes, you strike me as a person who was very nerdy. Where it's you got into stuff that
whatever are you trying to say?
I don't know, but you mentioned that you were into theater, and did theater strike you in high school, and what was your experience? Were you did you enjoy high school? Was it you were picked on the stereotypical
high school? I don't know. I have pretty good memories of high school.
That's good.
I don't know that I was picked on. I was never shoved into lockers or anything.
Sure.
Because I was always, I don't know, which is funny. It's so contrary to me now. I won't get into it, but I'm much different than I was as a teenager. As a teenager, I was really loud and rambunctious and, a lot funnier. Well, I shouldn't say funny, or more obnoxious, or more willing to attempt to be funny.
Sure.
Now, I usually sit a little quieter in a room without, trying to say anything.
Right.
But so in high school, I don't remember getting picked on, but I might have been too oblivious to know that I was being picked on every day.
Did you get into theater during that time too?
Yeah. Well, I guess it was at the end of 8th grade. They give you those forms, pick your electives.
Oh, okay.
And I knew that I wasn't interested in sports. I mean, look at me. I still not. Even back then, my friends wanted to go out and ride bikes, and I said, "Let's play Uno." Right. That was. I'm serious.
You're like, let me convince you otherwise. I think we need to say endorse.
Let's play Uno. I always wanted to let's make funny tapes. Let's try to make funny tapes. Let's do something. So I think there was always, not saying that I am creative, but there was always that creative spark in me. Right. So, but yeah, so when I got the elective card in 8th grade or what have you, I saw there was an opportunity for PE and things like that, or theater.
Right.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll try that.
That sounds cool, sure.
So I got into a theater class, and they were auditioning for a play. I said, I could probably do that. That looks fun. I like that. And I'd already been in talent shows in middle school and elementary school. At one, I sang "Shout It Out Loud" by Kiss.
Amazing.
Another one that another talent show I did. I made up my own Weird Al version of "Rock of Ages" by Def Leppard, and the version was called "I Lost My Shoes in Japan." That was That was my thing. But that's one thing I forgot. Def Leppard was a
huge thing for you.
Huge Pyromania. I don't know how I could have forgotten that.
Sure.
Probably around right after Journey.
Okay.
Before Twisted Sister, before Quiet Riot, was definitely Def Leppard.
That was a trend. Okay, got it.
Yeah, Def Leppard was a huge one. Can't believe I forgot that.
Sure.
But that one album, Pyromania.
Got it.
So, but yeah, and that's how when I got into high school.
You were used to performing. And
Yeah,
like you were
somewhat. Or I knew I liked it. I knew it was hammy and arrogant enough, or just dumb enough to get on stage and do shit in front of people that no one cared about.
Right.
And nothing's changed.
Yeah, you're like, I am still the goofball that grabs the mic. Yeah, no, it's
no one cares.
Right.
So yeah, in high school that was what I did, and I have pretty good memories of high school. I was the really short, long, loud guy that was in all the plays with the Slayer Hell Awaits back patch.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a character.
Well, yeah, I would say so, yeah, because typically you don't see those two quote unquote character types put together.
Sure.
It's like metalhead that's into theater.
Yeah.
Like you understand the performance aspect, but the theater aspect, you're just kind of like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Usually you'd be like, yo, you're just playing bands, and that's how you're getting your performance out. But,
yeah. And still to this day, I'm obviously not as immersed in it as I'd like to be, but I love theater. I love Broadway musicals. You put on my iPod on random, you could get Brutal Truth, and then you can get Little Shop of Horrors or Fiddler on the Roof.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Which is probably why I like Queen so much, because it mixes both worlds.
Totally. Completely theatrical.
Rock, metal, and theater.
Right.
And I love Queen. If I had to pick a favorite rock band, it would probably be them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the high school was fun. I skipped a lot. I never smoked, drank, or did any drugs, and I hung out with all the metalheads, so I had that safe haven, and I was in theater, so I was kind of loved by the intellectuals of the school, teachers and students alike, because he's always in theater, but then they liked me when I was on stage, and then after that, I, had my pants down, middle finger in the air, screaming, rain and blood.
Sure.
So it was like...
you had your foot in both worlds where it was like, that's interesting.
Yeah,
it's nice to have that experience where it's like, you have two different communities that would typically not intersect, but you were the kind of the glue that...
And definitely not to the extreme, because like I said, it wasn't just that I was in the theater program, and I like heavy metal.
Right.
It was, I was your obnoxious teenage metalhead. Like I said, pants down, one finger in nose, other finger, middle finger in the air, screaming a Metallica song at the top of my lungs. And then, 2 days later, I'm doing a somewhat mature play,
right.
At night. I don't know how good I was, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where my
You were doing both of those things.
But yeah, high school was fun. I didn't study. I didn't learn a damn thing.
You're like, I existed, and it was a good place where you could meet other people.
Yeah, it was fun. I liked high school.
And so then, obviously, like, Shai Hulud became, your more part of your life when it was, what was the year that Shai Hulud actually formed that you said that kind of...
We're having so much fun talking about things outside of Hulud.
No. Shai Hulud will not be the central focus of this interview. I know, exactly, because we don't... If anybody wants to read about Shai Hulud, there are many other places that they could read about it. But that's why I like to get the story behind the story.
Oh, cool, man.
Yes.
But, it just to tell you when it started in 90, I think it started in 95. I was 23 years old. I was playing guitar, like I said, in hardcore punk bands.
Right.
And then I went back to drums because my friend's ska punk band needed a drummer. So I ended up playing in a ska punk band. Did
you ever tour during those like formative band years? Like, all those, it was just all local gigs and stuff.
Well, I think the biggest thing that we ever did, I think Murray Chestos drove to Orlando, which I thought was the hugest deal.
Oh, it's huge, wow.
Yeah. And because it's so funny, the things you just don't know.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
When I meet a kid now and he asks me, how do you go on a tour? Make a phone. Just
right. Email a few people.
Yeah, right. But back then, you just don't know.
No, because your world is so small. But then it expands incrementally from there, and then you're like, oh, I can do this next step.
Yeah. I had no idea. So we played a show in Orlando, and then my ska punk band, we did a ska festival with Less Than Jake before they were just about to get signed to a major label. I think they only had out. Yeah, they only had out their first 7-inch Smoke Spot. Got it. And Bingo Mutt, my ska punk band at the time, shouldn't say mine. It was theirs, and I joined it and played drums for it. Okay. We went to Gainesville to play a show. That was probably the extent of my, touring experience.
Sure.
And then Hulud started in 95.
Okay,
I
got
was
it.
23, and Bingo Mutt just came to an end. I was like, all right, well, let's start a hardcore band.
Yeah, and this time as well, like you mentioned that you obviously did college for a little bit, but I presume at this time you were also kind of like working odd jobs and stuff like that. Like, were you like career minded, where you're like,
never.
Okay, you're like,
never.
So you basically just wanted to kind of be creative and be able to be creative without having a lot of constraints put on you. Like,
that's in a nutshell.
Okay,
that's,
all right.
Then and now it's the same thing. When I remember even in high school when our drama teacher was talking to everybody about what colleges is everyone thinking about, what's everyone going to do. I just remember thinking, not that, man, I just want to play metal. I didn't even think that. I just remember thinking, I don't want to go to college.
Right.
That's just not me.
Like, this isn't my goal.
I don't want to do that.
And I presume, was your mom disappointed in that? Was she like, you need to go to college, man?
No, not really.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's a whole another thing. My mother had her own issues.
Uh-huh.
She was lonely and, gaining weight, a single parent. So she and I didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things.
Got it. Okay.
There was a lot of tension between us. And then when I finally heard heavy metal, I rebelled against her because I didn't like the way she was treating me.
Of course.
So now I can, use the power of King Diamond to,
right.
to give her the middle finger.
To give you the guts to make that step.
And that's what I did, because it was a school night. First time I went and saw King Diamond.
Uh-huh.
I have seen him a few times, but the first time I saw King Diamond, my friend was outside on a Tuesday night saying, hey, I got our tickets. You ready to go?
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Mom, I'm going to see a show. She's not tonight. You're not.
It's a school night.
It's Tuesday night. Yeah. And I look outside, and my friend gives me the, are we going?
Right.
And I look at my mom, and she's saying I can't go. And I just said, fuck off, Mom. Gave her the middle finger, and I went out. True story. Not making it up.
Yeah.
And that was the day that I realized, though, especially without having a dad.
Right.
I'm fine. I can do whatever the hell I want here.
You're like, this is interesting now.
But the funny thing is, though, by nature, I, nerdy, goody two-shoes, whatever you want to call it,
mm-hmm.
I'm just not a troublemaker.
Right.
By nature. I've never really gotten in trouble outside of small little things.
Right.
I've never...
You would call it mischief.
Yeah, and hardly, really. You ready for this? Just to go back to Kiss, one time when I was like 8, I carved Kiss on my friend's father's new truck with a rock. That's a true story. I got in trouble for that one.
I would say that's more than mischief. Yeah. I mean, but that's
I never got into trouble. So when I even told my mother, fuck off, and now I realized I'm free.
Right.
The extent of it was skipping school, staying out late to practice with hardcore and heavy metal bands, and just basically not listening to my mother.
Right.
But I never smoked in my life. I've drank alcohol probably less than 12 ounces, cumulatively my whole life. Never been drunk. All types of smoking has never appealed to me, so no drugs.
Sure.
So even me at my most rebellious is pretty fucking tame.
It's pretty tame,
Just, just a little shitball. It's really... not the kind of kid, like, you don't want your kid hanging around with him.
Right.
More it's just like, you sure you want to hang out with that shitball?
Yeah. He's a little annoying.
He's a little annoying. He's an obnoxious little shit, but not a troublemaker.
Right.
And that's still me. Just
right.
I don't have the energy. Now as an adult, I don't like aggression. I like aggressive music.
Right.
But I don't like aggression between people. I don't like tension. If I have to argue a point more often than not that I won't, but more often than not, I'm more interested in just, all right, whatever. It's fine.
Right. We don't need to fight about this.
I don't like arguing.
Right.
A healthy conversation, debate is fine. But
right.
So, that's been me. I'm, as usual, I talk myself into
no,
a
that's
different
fine.
place.
But that's totally fine.
I'm not even sure where I am now.
And that's what I'm here for.
Good. No structure.
No, exactly.
For me.
No structure. You're just writing a Shai Hulud song right now. No, just kidding.
Exactly.
But then, obviously, it's like with Shai Hulud, it's been, for all intent and purposes, it's like, it's, your brainchild. You've definitely been the guiding force, glue, whatever you like to call it, in order to advance it over the years.
Sure.
And and this is more so from an internal perspective, like as far as like internal, I say music industry wise, or like maybe just there's a reason where I obviously a lot of people have been in the band and have left, and like you yourself admit that it's like, you like to have as much control as you possibly can.
That's a misconception.
Right. I mean, that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because it's like people have said in the past where it's just like, dude, Matt, like, cool dude, he's really hard to work with because, he's a control freak or whatever. It's just like, and people don't say that, at least I've never experienced it, in a negative fashion where they're like, he's a fucking dick, where it's just like, no, he expects a lot, like, out out of you.
I do, and I have,
which isn't bad, because
it'll leave me friendless. It'll leave me lonely the rest of my life. It's funny because I do have, for myself, and that's the thing. It's not just of you,
right?
It's of this guy too. I'm pointing to myself. I have unrealistically high standards.
Okay.
Why? And I'm not saying that I know better. It's not that I know better or have other better, smarter ideas. For whatever reason, same reason I like Wasp instead of Michael Jackson, I just have unrealistically high standards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to live up to them, and it's hard for other people to live up to them, and it's hard for those people to do their best, whoever they are, singers, drummers, guitar players. It's hard. Don't think I don't realize this.
Sure.
It's hard for them to give what they think is beyond their all and have me say, yeah, I don't know.
Be like, dude, I've literally bled over whatever tape we're recording on. And you're like, I think you do better.
Whatever, whatever the case may be. It sucks.
Yeah.
I know how much that sucks.
Sure.
I wouldn't want to be in that position either. I am in that position. I have to deal with Matt Fox more than any of you. I'm not happy about it.
No, I understand. And I think it's interesting because it's like, no matter what, whatever reputation has preceded you from that perspective, it's never, like I said, I never hear the words that backed up where it's like, it's from a negative place. You're just like, this is the way that he is, and not from like a bad standpoint. But
I understand it. I always try to clarify the disparity of being difficult and being demanding.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I don't. Anyone that listens to this that knows me, I guess, is probably going to crack up. But I truly, and I could be completely speaking in delusion here.
Sure.
But I don't think I'm difficult.
Right.
I don't think so. I don't know if we should let laughter ensue now.
Sure.
But I think I'm demanding, and I think demanding can have its merits. I also think it pushes a hell of a lot of people away.
Sure.
I've got that experience.
Sure.
But difficult to me is, to come up with a scenario is, hey, I think we should do that. No, I don't fucking think we should do that. I think that sucks.
Right.
That's difficult.
That is difficult, right.
Demanding is, I don't know if I like that.
Right.
Huh. I'm not into. You really like that, huh?
Yeah.
Let's try something else.
Sure.
We tried 15 other things. Yeah, let's try another 15. I think we got something.
Yeah.
Why don't you just spend the next 27 days sitting here with me, overthinking and overanalyzing this 1-2 second part? We can do that, right? That's demanding.
That is demanding. No, I see what you're saying.
And that's why when I get told that I'm difficult, it doesn't piss me off. It hurts my feelings.
Sure.
Because I don't think that I'm difficult.
Right.
If I'm talking with a rational person and we're going over something, of course sometimes people get heated.
Right.
I generally, not saying that I don't, I'm not saying that I don't initiate it sometimes.
Right.
But I think it's seldom. Because I will talk to somebody, they see black, I see white. Let's go over it 1,000,000 times and we can get it to where we're both happy. I'm always willing to do that.
Right.
But that's demanding.
Yeah.
And that's...
No, that's a very important distinction to make.
And that's like what I was saying, because I, forgot what I was saying.
Right.
That's when somebody tells me that I'm difficult, or when they say, "Oh, I heard you're difficult."
Right.
It hurts.
Sure.
Because I don't want to be difficult.
Right.
Demanding, I don't even mind, as negative as it can be sometimes, I don't even mind that, because I think if you are demanding, shit, I'm assuming that Steven Spielberg's pretty fucking demanding. You know what I mean?
That's true, yeah.
I'm assuming... And there's a playwright that I like, Neil Simon, if you know who he is. He wrote The Odd Couple and Brighton Beach Memoirs. A lot of stuff that people know and don't even realize they know.
Right.
But he has a quote. He says, and I'm totally paraphrasing, but he says something like, be good. The rest of the world is content with good enough. And that's a total paraphrase.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that when I was in high school reading theater and stuff. and that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be good enough.
It resonated.
I don't want to be good enough. I want to be. I have the potential, even if I have to work a little harder, because I think there are people, bringing up Ronen, who's a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
When he was writing lyrics for our side band, Zombie Apocalypse, I told him, I said, your lyrics are effortless. Like, I read them, and they just,
they flow.
They flow, and everything makes sense. And I wish I could write like that. And I know that I can write, but it's never, ever remotely effortless. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. This is whatever finally gets committed to the liner notes of whatever Shai Hulud record exists. It's painstakingly agonized over by yourself for probably more than you ever want to admit.
More time than I ever want to
dedicate to something. Yeah.
And I wish that things came a little easier to me, but they don't. I don't, Shai Hulud, an intellectual band, Matt Fox, that guy's smart. He's not smart.
Right.
I'm an ignoramus at best.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe an ignoramus with I think, good taste.
Right.
I can shit something out like anybody else, and the difference between me and somebody else will say, yeah, here, take this shit. And I'll say, that's a bunch of shit. Give me a few minutes to clean that up.
Right.
I know a little better. I shit out the same things as anyone else does. But I take the time, and think I can do something with this before I give somebody else a plate of my own.
Right.
Fecal matter. Am I cursing too much?
You're fine.
So, and that's, again, I have no idea where I was going with that. But, yeah.
That's because that's always been my perception. Just like there's a huge difference between demanding and difficult to work. Difficult to work with, like, realistically, you would not be where you're at right now.
I guess so.
Because it's like no one would want to play with you. No one would, like, because it's like you're not winning Grammys.
Yeah.
So, and clearly working with Shai Hulud, like that's
a labor of love.
It is. Sure. And I think it's funny because what I've noticed as well, people, and I'm speaking more to the quote unquote kids. So it's like, people that are younger that are, getting into Shai Hulud for whatever reason, for the either first time, second time, whatever, that are, under the age of like 25, we'll say. Mm-hmm. I see a very, people are continually passionate about Shai Hulud, even though you're not prolific. You've put out a lot of records.
No, not really. This is our fourth in like 15 years. That's crazy.
Right. Granted, comparatively speaking, I guess for the track rate of what I'm personally used to in regards to Shai Hulud, like the fact that you've put out as many things as you have, that's very good. And so,
but certainly not prolific by any means.
No, by comparative to other bands, yes, I would agree with you. But the fact that you've put yourself out there for as long as you have, and the message of kind of the, lyrically speaking, like the the dark versus light, the sort of the yin and the yang, where it's like you are singing about how, whatever, stereotypically speaking, how evil humanity is, but then how there's obviously hope that can be, derived from that, that you can be a good person. It's really interesting to see that, like, younger bands that have obviously been influenced by you guys that you tour with, bands like whatever, like 100th, who you guys just, recently played some stuff with. What do you think, resonates with bands of that nature, that sort of melodic hardcore thing that should be over for all intent and purposes as far as like the whole broad spectrum of independent music is concerned? What have you personally noticed that's like resonated with younger bands, younger fans, and the fact that people still, plain and simple, give a shit about what you do?
I don't know. I don't know even if I'm.
I know you're
going to answer the right way, but here's what's coming to mind anyway.
Okay.
What I think is interesting is that the people we're friends with, and we're friends with all sorts of different people. I mean, to quote my friend Mike, you got the old drummer of Unearth, current drummer of Madball.
Oh yeah.
Mike Justin. We were talking once, and he said, we all know we all have some unsavory friends. So I know some scary people that, I don't hang out with on a regular basis, but when I see them, hey man, how's it going?
Right.
But I mean, you know me now, I like to sit home. I like to play board games. I like to talk about Woody Allen and Carl Sagan and Planet of the Apes.
Right.
I'm not hard. I'm not tough. I threw one punch my whole life. Right. I don't ever want to punch anyone ever.
Right.
I want people to go crazy at shows. I don't want to see anyone swing their fist in anyone's face.
Right.
That's just contrary to my core as a human being.
Right.
And it just so happens that I'm into hardcore. So the point that I was trying to make is my friends, and I think the people that relate to Shai Hulud anyway, are people like me. You know, some of my best friends and some of the longest running girlfriends that I've had, you know, as far as romantic relationships, come from people liking Shai Hulud. You know, one of my best friends, his name's Mark. Mark, if you're listening, yes, you're one of my best friends.
Shout out to Mark.
His name's Mark Donovan. He's one of all of our best friends.
Sure.
He's a great guy. I can't believe I'm saying this. You're a piece of shit, really. But the truth is, who was he? What was he? He was a guy that came out to Shai Hulud shows, and and we just said, we like that guy.
Yeah.
He's probably like us.
Right.
And then we see him at the mall because we lived in Poughkeepsie.
Okay.
And Lord of the Rings is coming out. Oh, yeah, you guys interested in that? Yeah, let's go see it. And we became friends because we had things in common. And I think as far as, musically, personally, lyrically,
right.
I think it might all be, not always, because I know some really scary, tough guys that, we have nothing in common, and we both recognize that, but they're like, yo, I love you fucking band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
sure.
We realize that what we want to do on the weekends is totally different.
Yeah, we are not doing the same thing.
You know?
Right.
So, it's like I said, it's not exclusively, but I think a lot of the appeal to, I don't know if it's just in Shai Hulud, but I mean, what do they call it? Birds of a feather.
Right.
You know what I mean? The people that like our band have become friends. The guys in 100th, they always love their band, and I guess you could hear it in the music. I mean, shit, you could also say that you hear Turning Point, the music, who came out before us. So who knows if it's really Shai Hulud that they're influenced by.
Right.
But my point is, same types of people. They don't want to hurt anybody. They want to hang out and talk and eat dinner and be goofy, and you know what I mean? Right. And that's me.
Common goals.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and I think a lot of people that relate to Hulud lyrically are those kinds of people. Mm-hmm. Musically, not so much, because that can go, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Who's to say?
It runs the gamut.
Why should some tiny, scrawny little Jew love Vader or love, Napalm Death? There's no reason for it.
Right.
So who's to say, that's, big, angry, tough guy, for some reason, loves Shai Hulud? You know what I mean? Musically, not so much, but I think lyrically and personality, the personality that we put out, even though the personality is kind of stolen. I remember, this is a side note.
Sure.
I love the band SFA.
Okay.
We even covered Gyroscope back in the day. And I remember looking at their album cover, and their whole thing was pure hate. Hate this, hate that, hate this. And you read the liner notes, and they're just fucking hilarious.
Right.
And I remember thinking, and being still young, maybe 20, 21, maybe even younger, reading the liner notes, just thinking, these guys have a grip. I love the demeanor. Hate, angry, fuck you, fuck this, and, but they've got their finger in their nose the whole time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's my personality in general.
Sure.
But we definitely, I don't know that if I'd ever heard SFA or read their liner notes that I would have taken that approach with Shai Hulud.
Sure.
But when Shai Hulud was forming and doing stuff, I remember thinking, like, yeah, I want to kind of do that like SFA.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because, that's what you've always had, especially from a live perspective. It's like you've always had a very positive, upbeat, and fun vibe.
Because the band is not.
Right.
The band is not fun at all. And
sure.
it's fun. I mean, the music, it depends. Well, I guess it depends on your perspective of fun. For me, watching Woody Allen's Crimes and Misdemeanors is fun because I'm engrossed and I'm totally thinking. He's going into all of these philosophies about life and murder, and like, this is fun to me because, wow, I'm totally engaged.
Right.
Some other people, fun is super bad.
Sure.
I'd rather slit my own throat than watch Superbad. Never seen it. Maybe the funniest movie I've never seen. Not interested.
Not interested.
You know what I mean? So it depends on what your type of fun is. But Hulud, as objectively speaking, it's not fun. Mm-hmm. Zombie Apocalypse is fun.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's fun. It's fast and it's serious, but it's fun. It's quirky.
Right.
I don't think that there's anything necessarily fun about Hulud. So I do find that it's important. You don't want to get on stage, hello, we are Shai Hulud, and then give these horribly spoken, inarticulate speeches on that, like, people like suck, I'm not articulate. I can't, you know what I mean? We can't discuss. I would rather get up there and, generally I'm a happy, optimistic person. Again, laughter ensues across the land. But it's true, I am.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get on stage and just be, profound,
morose
and profound hatred of man.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like let the music be what it is.
Right.
And let's have a good attitude about it. I'm not saying, go up with rubber chickens or anything and put on a comedy show.
Right.
But, an energetic live show where the band takes itself seriously, but the people do not. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Where it's like, I can hang out with that guy.
Right. Yeah, you've always been, and especially like now that obviously like social networks are pervasive, and it's like, you have fun with your Twitter account.
Yeah,
it's like you're definitely self-deprecating, and maybe some would argue almost to a fault, because people are like, oh, does this guy take himself seriously? But yeah, you do, because it's like, you are interacting with people, but it's cool because it's like, people that have obviously come up pre-internet and, before this all existed are sometimes a little more dodgy to kind of roll with not trends musically, but just like, being comfortable to be like, oh, this is what Twitter is, and this is fun for me. Sure. Yeah, it's like, it's cool because it's like over your duration in independent music, you've always been able to, at least from the outsider's perspective, been able to like adapt and change and still remain relevant, but not lose the core of what the band has always kind of been,
Cool, man. As I see it, it's just me or Fletcher and I who've been in the band. Fletcher wasn't an original, but he's been in the band for over 10 years. Right. We're just being us. Right. I don't know how to be anything else.
Right. You're like, this isn't part of the Shai Hulud 30-page marketing plan.
I don't know how to be anything else. And sometimes Fletcher tends to want to take things in the band a little more seriously than I do. He's criticized me, and rightfully so, a few times, because on stage, afterwards we'll get off and he'll say, does it have to be a fucking Smothers Brothers routine?
Yeah, sure.
Because we've had a couple different guys in the band that are more like me. Fletcher's goal, he wants to get on stage and kick ass, keep it lighthearted, really punch in the face, metaphorically, and leave an impact. And I want to do that too. I tend to want to have my tongue in cheek a little bit more than he does. So, he'll say to me, like I said, does it have to be like that? You can, if you want to make a joke here and there, I just don't want it to be a comedy routine. Right. And it's funny because I understand where he's coming from. I filled in and never joined the band, but I filled in for Marauder. Right. And, the outside perspective of Marauder is like, holy shit, tough, scary, real deal things. Yep. And on stage, Jorge is just lighthearted and fun. He kissed me on stage. He goes, yo, this is Fonzie over here. Everybody say hello to Fonzie. You know what I mean? Sure. Which is an extreme compliment.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'll take it, hell yeah. So, but it's funny because I was thinking, man, I wonder if I was seeing, because the first time I ever saw Marauder, unfortunately, was the first shows that I played with them. So I was just wondering, like, man, if I had seen Marauder, especially maybe in the 90s or early 2000s, and I want to scream along to Master Killer, right? And he's, just being lighthearted and funny, I wonder how I would have taken that. Right. And along those, I know I'm just kind of consciousness here.
Yeah, it's fine.
But along those lines, I understand the difference, and I agree with Fletcher. I tend to move a little more in the other direction sometimes, but I try to keep it so Shai Hulud isn't just like, we're going to go see Shai Hulud tonight. They're going to be hilarious. Yeah. That's not, I don't want that. Sure. I want it to be impactful or impactive. I don't think impactful is a word. Right. So how articulate I am. So, we had a guitar player who's, he's a real happy-go-lucky, sweetest guy, always smiling when he played music. And he's the kind of guy that when I showed him a part, he'd go, that's awesome. Yeah. I love that. Not exactly the personality that we want to put forth in Hulud. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be happy, but, we're screaming a profound hatred of man. And that's kind of the story I wanted to tell. We watched back a video, and we're, Fletcher and I are in everybody's face. Whoever's singing at the time, I don't know. Yeah. Is in everyone's face, screaming, pissed off. Right. On a side note, when Mark, my friend I was telling you about, when any of my friends are up front singing and they're trying to get the same experience, they want to sing, these lyrics, right? I crack up. Because, they know me. We know each other. Right. And I just can't scream a profound hatred of man at like one of my good friends who's seen me naked.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I try.
Right.
I always try it, but
I try to remove myself from the situation mentally.
I always try to keep it, profound hatred of man, but I usually start like this, and, and I lose it because it's my friend.
Sure.
But anyway, outside of that, we watched this video, and we saw our guitar player at the time on Profound Hatred of Man going like side to side, huge grin, jumping around,
right,
having a blast. But man, watching the video, it didn't gel for me.
Yeah, it didn't feel right.
And I told him, I said, hey man, we gotta toughen you up on this part a little bit.
Right.
And he says, I'm very happy playing this music. Is it wrong to smile? I said, no, it's not wrong to smile, but there's somebody out there, whoever he or she is, that read these lyrics and said, that's me. I'm going to this show and I'm going to get out everything in that one line.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm going to do it with those guys. Like saying like when I finally saw Burn and I'm right up front, ready to get it all out.
Yeah.
And if the guy had his finger in his nose the whole time, metaphorically,
right,
I'd say, fuck.
Yeah.
So I told the guy, and I explained it to him. I said, watch the video. And he understood. He says, we definitely have to sell that profound hatred. Not for any reason, not for tough reasons, not for marketing reasons.
Right.
Only because there's someone out there that listens to that song and they don't hear jokes. There's no jokes in that song.
Sure.
So when we're performing that, we need to put all the goofiness aside and sell that profound hatred and kind of harken back, no pun intended.
Yes.
Go back to where we were when we wrote it or when we felt it initially so we can help deliver that to give the people that want to be a part of it that emotion that they were looking for.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So where was I coming from? Where was I going with this? I don't know. How people relate, I think they relate to the music, the sincerity, and the fact that it's all birds of a feather. Because I think you can read, not necessarily listen to the music, but you could read the liner notes like we were saying and just say, these guys seem okay.
Right.
They hate everything, but...
Yeah. There's something else.
I've got a feeling I could go to dinner with these guys and have a good time.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. Except for Fletcher, because he doesn't like to go to dinner. And I quote him when I say we want to put this on the back of the shirt. I quote him, direct quote.
Okay.
Fuck your good time. That is Matt Fletcher.
That is a direct quote.
That is a direct quote, and which will make it on the back of a T-shirt one day. Shai Hulud, fuck your good time. Matt Fletcher.
That's amazing.
So yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for wanting to hang out, and obviously this was.
Is it over already?
I know we could probably go on for like 7 hours or
probably.
so, but we got to keep it reasonable. But
sure.
Thank you very much, Matt. This was extremely fun, and I hope you enjoyed it in some way.
Fun, Shai Hulud, anything regarding Shai Hulud, fun. That's like minds are blown right now. Thank you, Ray. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.